Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode here at the Damage Report under lockdown. I've got two bits of good news for you, and that's it. There's no other good news. The first bit of good news is that it's Friday. Yay. The second is this. Anna Kasparian, how's it going?
Hey everybody.
Hey, so
It's
happy to have you
going.
here.
It's going. It's good to be here. It's a pretty crazy news day. So I hesitate to say it's going well. It's really not going well in the country, and it's pretty terrifying.
Yeah. Last night was really something. Every part of it was awful, and we're going to break down a lot of different parts of it. But don't worry, we are going to have a little bit of fun too. We're going to talk about some other things in the news. Very excited for Anna to throw somebody in the trash for garbage people this week. The rare Anna.
It's among my favorite things to do.
I know, it is funny. I'm trying to think of what could be a version of this for you. I don't know, like covering someone in salt. I don't know, something like that. But anyway, it should be a lot of fun. Everybody who's already coming into the chat, thank you so much for doing that. Please hit the like button and share the stream if you haven't, so that more people know that the stream is live and can come and get involved in the conversation. Maybe have a little bit of backup in what's probably going to be years of political conflict that's going to be really, really hard. Did want to let you know a couple of things before we get launched into the news. One, we have just a couple of days left in the TYT May fundraising. So if you are able to help us out, keep us afloat, go to tyt.com/go, and you can do that there. Also, you've been seeing throughout the week, I've been wearing some of my favorite new t-shirts available at shoptyt.com. Right now, I've got a classic on. That is the Bernie So Punk. But we've got a bunch of other awesome ones available too. Go to shoptyt.com and you can pick that up as well. You may not be going outside, but you still have to cover your torso. So this is one way to do that. And with that, anyway, Anna, why don't we launch into the news? And everybody understand some of this is going to be like we're going to show you some video that's going to be pretty rough. We're going to be talking about some really dark stuff and just trying to get through it together. So just bear that in mind. The next part is going to be pretty tough. Last night, if you're like me, you were watching the live coverage of what was going on in Minneapolis. You were seeing the developments, some on social media live, and it was a pretty dark moment for America. Seeing how this obviously justified and understandable outpouring of anger at our fundamentally effed up system being met with not only condescension and ignorance, but even threats of violence. And so Anna and I are going to get into a lot of that. Before we launch into the specifics, though, Anna, I know that you, like me, you were watching that roll in. What was the experience like last night?
So I had a mix of emotions. Most of the feelings I had toward the way that these protests have been handled is a mix of fear and rage, because what we're seeing is, here's what I thought about the most. The fact that so many of our resources have gone toward funding our military and basically enabling this police state. And we've basically militarized our police force in this country. And for a very long time, I think Americans sat back and were complicit in our military brutalizing the people of other countries. And we should have known that this could eventually turn around and impact us. We should have been outraged when we were complicit, when our government was active in, and a portion of our citizenry was complicit in the mutilization and murder of people abroad. But we shouldn't be surprised that we're also experiencing that. Specifically, the most powerless people are experiencing that right now. And some of the scenes from last night, were terrifying, because there were multiple examples of police driving by innocent protesters who weren't doing anything wrong. They weren't breaking windows. They weren't even blocking the street. Nothing. They weren't doing anything wrong. There's this one video that I saw on Twitter where a police officer in an SUV drives by, just starts pepper spraying people.
Yeah, just rolls down the window.
This is
holds it out.
commonplace. This is Yeah, it's commonplace when it comes to these types of protests. And I'm not going to in any way humor these disingenuous arguments about how, oh, the protesters are looting or they're damaging property. That is not what this discussion is about. This is a discussion about a community that has been ignored, a community that has been brutalized for a very long time in this country. And there has been no form of protest that has been deemed acceptable by those in positions of power or by conservatives.
Yeah.
You have Colin Kaepernick kneeling peacefully to raise awareness of and to protest the police brutality in this country, and he was met with absolute viciousness. It doesn't matter if the protests are peaceful, it doesn't matter if they're violent. The whole effort that I'm seeing by those focusing on the so-called violence that's taking place is just an effort to delegitimize their very legitimate concerns.
Yeah.
And that's what the conversation is, and that's what I want to focus on.
100%. I mean, like, Kaepernick, obviously, like, we know, you know, how he talked to vets and things like that before starting it and try to figure out the best way to do it and all of that. But it was so perfect because in doing that and getting, like, the unified right wing in vicious, like, mouth-frothing rage at him, he was silently kneeling. There is nothing less in-your-face, bombastic, threatening, anything that you could come up with. What was he supposed to do, lie face down on the ground? I don't know. He almost was. And when they say that that is too much, then what are you supposed to do? I mean, I get what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to shut up and not protest at all. Or if you do it off in a building somewhere where I can't see it and can't hear about it, and it can't get any coverage, and it certainly can't lead to any change. That might be acceptable, but none of this will be. And so when they are attacking these protests, it's very much you know, an ideology that cried wolf moment. I don't buy anything that you say. I don't buy anything that you're saying about this. And the thing too is, I get that they focus on, well, we're mad about the fires, we're mad about the looting or whatever. And I can see in the chat, one or two people are like, I don't need to pay attention to any of this because a window was broken or whatever. And the thing is, as many people are describing that are on the ground right now, there are lots of reason to believe that quite a bit of this, perhaps not all, but quite a bit of windows being broken, buildings being burned down, cannot necessarily be traced to the actual protesters. I mean, not only we understand that there is opportunistic crime in these sorts of situations where people come in and sort of co-opt a moment for themselves, but there's also reason to believe that it might very well have been police or allies of police that are being involved in some of this. Leaders on the ground are saying there was a group of 6 white men that they were trying to stop from doing this sort of stuff, but they were continuing to do it. They were not leaders in the movement or anything like that. And then, look, I will preface this video by saying we don't necessarily know who this person is, but I want to show you something that was going around on social media last night or yesterday, a really weird situation with this individual with an umbrella going around smashing windows. Take a look.
Minneapolis, 3rd Precinct. That's the police station right there. That's why I'm doing this shit, guys. What the? I ain't got part of that shit. Dude. Oh, I zoomed in. I'll zoom out a little bit. Those cops will come for you if you're pulling that crap. Looks like, yeah. So as you can see, the auto goes.
Guy just came with a hammer and smashed the windows.
I'm gonna fight you right now.
You wanna go? What's up? Somebody hold my blunt.
Hey,
Somebody hold my blunt. I'm gonna keep it up. Hey. Are you a fuck? What's up?
Okay, so it continues on from there for a while. Now, there was a belief that this was a particular police officer, Jacob Peterson. We don't know for sure. The police department, which takes a very long time to do any sort of investigation, immediately came back and said, we know for sure that this was not Jacob Peterson. He has an alibi. And when people asked to interview Jacob Peterson about what he had been up to, the cop said, no, he doesn't need to give an interview. He has an alibi, or we say he does. I have no idea who that individual was. I have a feeling it probably wasn't someone whose driving passion in life is civil rights and the battle for an end to police brutality, if I had to guess.
I'm sure we're going to talk about it later, but I need to reference it in the context of this story. Minneapolis police officers arrested a CNN journalist who happens to be Black and Latino, and then proceeded to arrest his crew. And I bring that up because they then later tried to justify what happened with lies. And I think that's important to keep in mind when you hear any type of statement from the Minneapolis Police Department. They have, just completely mishandled this entire situation. They have tried to cover up what they've done. It took mass outrage for any real consequences for the police officers who were on the scene and took part in what happened in the murder of George Floyd. And even now, till this day, the cop, Derek Chauvin, who had his knee on the neck of George Floyd, which led to his murder, his death, has not been arrested. Mm-hmm. But a Black CNN reporter has been arrested. I mean, they let him go shortly after. But I think that's relevant. I think that imagery is something that we should all keep in mind as we hear statements and defenses coming from the Minneapolis Police Department.
Yeah, and we'll show some of that video in a little bit. I have no idea who that individual is. People are saying that his ex-wife confirmed that it was him, but I don't, I'm not a ridiculous grifter trying to just make people believe that I know everything about the universe, so I'm not going to state with any certainty that I know who that individual was. But again, I don't think it was a legitimate protester who was concerned about the killing of George Floyd. I just don't. I don't know what the umbrella's about. People say it's a thing that undercover cops use to identify themselves to police helicopters. I have no idea. But anyway, if you believe that continue.
I'm sorry. I have to add one more thing. You cannot bring a human back to life after you murder them. Mm-hmm. When they're gone, they're gone. Okay? George Floyd had a young daughter who will never see her father again. There's no way to undo what Derek Chauvin did in murdering George Floyd.
Yeah.
I get that people are angry about property damage, but honestly, I'm just not interested in having a debate about the value of material goods and property right now. This is a discussion about human lives which have not been valued in this country. And yes, absolutely, it has to do with race. But make no mistake, this has to do with the powerless. And that includes people of all colors, okay? Doesn't matter if you're white, doesn't matter if you're Black, doesn't matter if you're Asian. If you are poor, if you are living in poverty and struggling in this country, this system as it stands today will continue to beat you down. Yeah. And we're now in a situation where people literally feel like they have nothing to lose. So we have to ask ourselves, how did we get to this situation? Because when people are powerless and they feel that they have nothing left to lose, that's when this type of violence breaks out. Yeah. Okay, so we need to have a discussion about what to change systemically. And I'm not talking about nonsense, on the surface change. I'm talking about real systemic change. A system in place right now that allows for someone like Amy Klobuchar to refuse to prosecute Derek Chauvin when he had been accused 18 different times of excessive force. And now she's turning around and talking about how there must be prosecution, there must be consequences. Well, you could have pursued consequences when you were in the position of power to do it, but she didn't. We have political grifters all over the place, both Democrat and Republican. And we need bold systemic change, period.
Yeah, so I'm seeing people are referencing in the comments that the police officer has now been arrested. I have not been able to find confirmation yet. If anybody wants to say where they're seeing that, feel free. It's difficult for us to check in the middle of a live broadcast, but we will try to do that. Obviously I agree with you, Anna, and thank you for that.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of On the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
While last night all of the chaos was reigning and things were happening, we can't say for sure who was doing it because there was incredibly suspicious behavior going on, Donald Trump decided to weigh in, and here is what he had to say. I can't stand back and watch this happen to a great American city, Minneapolis. A total lack of leadership. Either the very weak radical left mayor, Jacob... God, all these tweets are filled with absolute nonsense. That's so disconnected from reality. Get his act together and bring the city under control, or I will send in the National Guard and get the job done right. These thugs are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd, and I won't let that happen. Just spoke to Governor Tim Walz and told him that the military is with him all the way. Any difficulty and we will assume control, but when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Thank you. Okay, so it's 20% more explicit now who Trump is, what his movement is, what they want, and what he plans to deliver for them. We are supposed to read that tweet and pretend that he's just the same as every other politician, that it's all the same, it's all equal. He's not scary or dangerous in any fundamental way. He's only using his social media to broadcast to more than 50 million people. I think it might be 80 million followers of his, that looters should be shot, that he might send in the military to begin killing these protesters. Or, hypothetically, we understand the nature of stochastic terrorism. I mean, we've already got professional agitators on the ground there. Maybe some militia members in the area, some white supremacists. Your leader, the guy you worship, is saying looters should be shot. And so, if people get shot today, if they get killed, are we supposed to just say, seems crazy to think that that might be linked to Donald Trump saying that looters should be shot? It's absurd to state that. We had to watch this roll in. And we're going to have the defense because he's being defended because there's nothing he can say, no call for violence so explicit that they won't defend it. But that's what we had last night from the president. Shoot the looters.
Donald Trump never misses an opportunity to pour gasoline on the fire. This is what he wants. Don't make the mistake of thinking that Trump is actually concerned about what's happening in Minneapolis today. And by the way, it's not just Minneapolis. There have been protests in other major cities in the US as well. Yes. And it's because of this nonstop oppression people have been feeling, especially the most powerless people in this country. And again, if they feel that they have nothing left to lose, if they feel that there is no form of protest that's deemed acceptable by the naysayers, they're going to rebel. And that's what we're seeing in this country right now. And Donald Trump loves it because he can use it to further divide the country in a way that he deems politically advantageous for himself. Mm-hmm. What Trump has done over and over again is incite violence, celebrate violence when it's committed by certain people. If we want to have a discussion about violence in America, I think it's important to talk about state-sponsored violence, which is what we see every single day. The very Republicans, the very lawmakers who are defending Donald Trump's statement are also the same ones who have, and by the way, they're defending Donald Trump's statement and they're criticizing the protesters, but they were never critical of Donald Trump pushing for the death of immigrant children at the border. I mean, how many stories did we read about minors found dead, surrounded in their own vomit in Trump's border cages?
Yeah.
But they didn't care. They didn't care. What about that kind of state-sponsored violence that actually leads to death? Donald Trump loves this. He incites violence all the time. He incited violence when it came to the anti-stay-at-home protesters. He incited violence when it came to those neo-Nazis and white supremacists in Charlottesville, which also led to the murder of a counter-protester, Heather Heyer. Donald Trump's legacy will be riddled, has already been riddled with instances of murder, death, and violence. So he has absolutely no leg to stand on when he says that he's concerned about the violent actions of protesters in Minneapolis. He's absolutely full of crap.
Yeah, no. No, he wants violence. He just wants a particular type. And more importantly, his movement wants that type. I mean, we can't pretend that there aren't millions of Americans that want the National Guard to go into inner cities and start shooting people. It's crazy, but that is the truth. His movement is thirsty, desperate for violence. That's what they want. Some of them very explicitly. The anti-lockdown protesters with their boogaloo and all that, wanting a civil war or race war or whatever, they're very clear about it. But 10, 100 times as many want it, but won't necessarily put it on a sign and flaunt it. But that's what they want. And it couldn't be more explicit. I mean, as many people have pointed out, you just saw his tweets about the protests in Minneapolis. Take a look at his tweets from less than a month ago when he said, the governor of Michigan should give a little and put out the fire. These are very good people, but they are angry. They want their lives back again, safely. See them, talk to them, make a deal. The difference was that those were angry white people toting guns, mad that they can't go to a bakery or get their hair done or something. There, you have to give them whatever they want. I mean, sure, they're bringing semi-automatic rifles and they're going into the Capitol building and implying violence against the government of Michigan. But just give them whatever they want. Come on, they're good people. But when people get angry because another one of their own was murdered on videotape, and up until a few minutes ago, the cop hadn't even been arrested. Apparently, it has been confirmed now. Jill Colvin reporting that Chauvin has been arrested. They're illegitimate. It's an explicitly white identitarian movement. That's what it is. It is a fascist white nationalist movement. That's why they throw the identity politics stuff in our face constantly. It is just projection. It is a white nationalist movement. That's what it is. And they want racial violence. When Trump promises that, it's not some risky gamut. It's a sure thing. It's a slam dunk for him. This is what his fans want. That's why they're backing him up today about that.
I know. Look, I'm terrified about what the future holds for this country. I just am. And I don't see, look, this is anecdotal. It's on social media. So I don't want anyone to think that this is necessarily indicative of what we're seeing overall from the centrist Democrat response. But they're talking about how this is the progressives' fault. Like on Twitter, like I've seen threads about that. And all I can do when I see stuff like that is think about what transpired in 2016 and how differently things would have been if the DNC wasn't so obsessed with putting this entitled woman, Hillary Clinton, in the position of the Democratic candidate. You know what I'm saying? Like, what would happen if we had a real free and fair Democratic primary in 2016 without the DNC playing any of the games that it played? And, who knows? Maybe it would have been Hillary Clinton. But there's a good chance that the Democratic nominee could have been Bernie Sanders. And he had a much better chance of beating the fascists that we have in office right now. And we could have been in a completely different situation. I mean, we could have been having a debate right now about whether it makes sense to build I don't know, 100 million units for affordable housing? Or maybe we should start off slow with 50 million units.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of debate I imagine we'd be having. But instead, people continue to be mutilated, brutalized, and murdered in our country, with a significant portion of our politicians defending that behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got a few more aspects of the tweets. I want to give you one because there's a name that has come up in the past few days for good reason. I want to give you Amy Klobuchar's response. She tweeted, in response to Trump's shooting tweet, that's in her tweet, "Our community is hurting for justice and charges for George Floyd. Vandalism must stop, but we need systemic reform, like a full-scale DOJ pattern practice investigation of Minneapolis police, like I've called for. So much better than a tweet." Yeah, that would be better than Trump's tweet. But you know what would have been better than your tweet? If you had gotten that cop off the street back when you had the power to do that and chose not to. So this is an interesting way to cover for yourself. But there is every reason to believe that if she had taken her job seriously back then, we wouldn't have had any of this. We wouldn't have had the murder, wouldn't have had anything from it.
It is incredible how much your views change once you're auditioning for a position of power, like a VP pick for a Democratic presidential candidate. All of a sudden, you believe in justice.
Mm-hmm.
Strange. You know,
it's weird.
I think real leaders show leadership and strength in times when their ideas and their policy proposals might be unpopular, right? A real leader does what's right in a moment when it's unpopular to do so, because they know it's the right thing to do. We don't have very many of those politicians.
Mm-hmm.
Not many of them exist, right? So it's not just about Amy Klobuchar. I just want people to start thinking about the motivations and intentions behind what politicians do and say.
Yeah.
Because, John, you and I know a lot about the grifters in media, but the political world is chock full of them, right? And it's all about their own, personal ambitions and where they're going to go next in their careers. It's not about doing right in representing the best interests of Americans and their constituents. It's just not. And we need to call them out when we see it, and we need to do so aggressively.
I couldn't agree more. I'd pulled, in response to Trump saying that we should shoot people who are doing the looting, I'd pulled a 1985 Supreme Court decision that lays out in great detail why it is not acceptable for the police to gun down people who are getting away for nonviolent crimes. But then I realized I'm going to save myself some time. If you need to have that explained to you, get off my channel. Don't watch my videos. I don't want your support. It's on its face not acceptable. That's all that I'm going to say about it. Donald Trump's tweets that seem to indicate that he supports the shooting of protesters in Minneapolis received the rare sort of hiding on Twitter. Take a look at this. Now, it took hours and 100,000 plus retweets before this happened, and they're not actually gone, those tweets. You can still click on the view, but it does indicate that this tweet violated the Twitter rules about glorifying violence. And they had been up long enough that I actually tweeted at Twitter, so can you make threats of violence or not on Twitter? Because apparently you can. So now you sort of can, but it will be sort of hidden. And they released a statement saying that they've placed a public interest notice on this. They're worried that it might inspire people to commit violent acts. So it is not even censorship because it's still there. It's just sort of hidden. This is a little bit stronger than like the fact checking that they did just a couple of days ago. Anna, what do you think about this move from Twitter?
I'm actually kind of shocked that Twitter did this, especially following Trump's unbelievable temper tantrum when they added a fact-checking link to his misinformation about mail-in voting. I mean, Trump signed a ridiculous executive order trying to exert more federal government power over social media platforms because he wanted to retaliate politically against Twitter. And I'm actually happy to see that they are undeterred and they decided to do something. Now, I agree with you. I would like to see more. Donald Trump has a history of inciting violence And he does so by using this platform where he has tens of millions of followers. So if you truly think that it's inciting violence, number one, even if this was a government entity, if Twitter was a government entity, it would not be protected speech. Inciting violence is not protected under the First Amendment, number one. Mm-hmm. But since it's a private company, they can do what they want. They could literally take those tweets down. And I know some people are concerned about, what this would mean. It could be a slippery slope when it comes to others who are actually truly sharing their opinions and practicing free speech on the platform. But honestly, I think when it comes to Trump and when it comes to the examples of him inciting violence, it's a pretty clear-cut case. He is encouraging people to shoot these protesters. He wants the violence to escalate. And it's dangerous. And honestly, if I had any power, if I worked at Twitter, I would just take the tweet down.
Yeah, I would too. And again, I feel like we say this every day on the show now, in the hopes that perhaps a classic liberal will watch and learn something. Your right to free speech, the First Amendment protects you from the government infringing on your speech. As a random example, if like the government was to shut down a social media company because they don't like its practices, that might be a First Amendment violation. For instance, if the cops arrest journalists just doing their job, that might be a violation of the First Amendment. Right. Them putting a fact check on a tweet or not wanting to be party to incitement to violence, that's their right as a private company, a private entity, to not be involved in stochastic terrorism. It's not a violation of the First Amendment right.
What's really incredible about Trump's executive order against social media platforms is that based on the standards in his executive order, Twitter as a company could be held accountable for inciting violence based on what a user has posted on the platform. Mm-hmm. So Trump incites violence on this platform literally on the same day that he signs this executive order indicating that these social media platforms can face consequences if there's anything questionable posted on their platform. And then he posts the questionable thing on the platform. Yeah. You can't incite violence. That is not protected speech in any way. So I would be shocked if he really understood what was in the executive order he signed. It was very clearly a strategy to retaliate politically because Twitter had the audacity to finally correct him. Yeah. I mean, he's been using that platform to spread misinformation since the very beginning of his account. But, I think that, listen, I called Jack Dorsey a coward this week. And I just think that he's been watching TYT and he realizes that he can't be a coward. He needs to do something. And so maybe he's finally standing up and doing something about this. I don't know. Maybe. I'm not saying it's because of me. I'm just saying.
Well, you don't have to because it's obviously because of you. Anyways. Anyways. He still deserves a ton of criticism for basically everything Twitter has done as long as it's been around. He does, however, benefit from standing side by side with Zuckerberg this week. I mean, that's going to make anyone look good by comparison. Now, really fast, while those tweets had that sort of cover put on them, he then had the official White House Twitter account tweet out the shooters looters thing, which, by the way, just really fast, I know you all probably know this by now, but it's a callback to Walter Headley in 1967, a racist police chief of Miami who wanted to gun down black gangs and things like that. I don't know if Trump knows that. I'm assuming someone told him that because white supremacists are probably on the lookout for that sort of reference. Or maybe Trump just happens to think like a 1960s racist police chief. I don't know. One of those two things is going on. That White House tweet, though, also got the same sort of cover label thing. As long as it is possible, he is going to push it out to as many millions of people as possible, knowing that there are enough crazy, violent, racist people in this country who worship at the altar of the red hat. If you think that one or two of them aren't just itching to start shooting people, and then just claim that it was protesters that were doing the shoot. Like, if 5 protesters were gunned down today, and it was obvious that an outside militia member had done it, what do you think, like, Tucker Carlson's going to have, like, an awakening, and he's going to realize what he hath wrought? No, they're just going to provide cover. They're providing cover right now. We're going to give you the cover in a moment, actually, but I'm worried about what tonight will bring, basically.
Of course, everyone should be worried. Anyone with a conscience, anyone who actually genuinely values human life should be concerned. But, of course, Tucker Carlson isn't going to have an awakening. His material interests prevent him from having an awakening. Don't make a mistake about it. Many of the conservative commentators that we hear from say the things they say, knowing in a lot of cases that it's wrong and it could lead to death, destruction, murder.
Yeah. Because
they get to collect that, multi-million-dollar salary every year, spitting out nonsense propaganda that further divides this country. That's what Tucker Carlson is. And by the way, I don't deny that he's deeply racist. I have no doubt that he is. But I think even when he sees instances where people of color are being unjustly, it's always unjust, but being brutalized by police, he's not going to tell the truth.
Yeah.
If he tells the truth, he's going to lose his material interest. That's at the heart of what we're seeing in the media right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I could go on for a while about that. This morning, a CNN reporter was arrested on the streets of Minneapolis, just doing their job live on TV. Take a look at this.
The state patrol unit that was advancing up the street, saying and scattering the protesters at that point for people to clear the area. And so we walked away. I'm sorry?
You're under arrest.
Okay. Do you mind telling me why I'm under arrest, sir? Why am I under arrest, sir?
Officer's with CNN and he's on the air right now.
Okay.
You are arresting him live on CNN. We told you before that we are with CNN.
If you're just tuning in, you are watching our correspondent, Omar Jimenez, being arrested by state police in Minnesota. We're not sure why our correspondent is being arrested.
Hang on one second, Allison. Let's listen into what these officers are saying. That is an American television reporter, Omar Jimenez, being led away by police officers. He clearly identified himself as...
Omar was just arrested. I believe they're about to, we're all about to be arrested. That's our producer.
Our CNN producer is being...
I'm probably going to be taken in a minute.
Our CNN camera crew and our producer are being arrested right now on live television in handcuffs.
I've never seen... We're going to keep on listening to this camera. Josh Campbell, who I believe is not yet under arrest. Hang on one second. All right. The police are now saying they're being arrested because they were told to move and didn't. Now, we were on the air the whole time.
Okay, so two references there. One to a white CNN reporter who was about a block away, who was not arrested. No idea why he wasn't, and Omar was, except for the obvious reason. And also the lie there, that there was a tweet by the police station saying that they had arrested the reporters for refusing to move when they were asked to. You just watched the interaction. It is a lie. They apparently are unfamiliar in the Minneapolis PD with how cameras work and how live TV broadcasts work. But you just saw it. Reporters doing their job and being hauled away by the police.
He got arrested in the middle of his live hit.
That's insane.
In the middle of his live hit. Like, there's no question he's a reporter. And he's literally in that moment specifically reporting on what's happening on the scene. The Minneapolis police violated freedom of press. That is a serious constitutional violation. And I'm sorry to go off on this tangent, but I really can't help myself. Because when we talk about media grifters, the first person I think about when I see a story like that is a little bitch ass like Dave Rubin. Where are you, Dave Rubin? Are you concerned about free speech rights? Or are you only concerned when you want to make yourself out to be a victim and slang your ridiculous book, which no one cared about? Which is why you felt the need to literally burn your own book to make a point. Yeah. Like, Dave Rubin titled his book, "Don't Burn This Book," because he thought liberals cared enough, that people on the left cared enough about his book to burn it. And then when he saw that no one cared, nobody cared to do any of that because he's irrelevant and incredibly embarrassingly stupid, he decided to burn it himself because he's not a victim. The real victims in this country are the actual truth tellers, okay, who struggle to make ends meet with independent media. He's the Koch brothers bitch boy, and he runs around, okay, acting as though he's some sort of victim while reporters are getting arrested on the scene as they're doing their jobs.
Yeah.
While an actual constitutional violation is happening before our very eyes. Where are you, Dave Rubin? Where's your little bitch ass? Little punk.
Yeah.
I'm sick of these grifters because they enable the type of deterioration we're seeing before our very eyes for their own profit. That's all it's about, 100%. And I'm so unbearably done with it. Like, I can't stand it.
Yeah.
I can't stand it. While they go around arguing that other people are putting themselves in the oppression Olympics, specifically people of color, by the way, he then goes around pretending like he's a real victim while he's living in a $1.5 million home in a super affluent part of town. You're not a victim, okay? And if you actually care about freedom of speech, why don't you speak up right now?
Yep.
But he won't, because he's a little bitch ass.
Yeah, no. He tweeted that the Target that burned, his book was out of stock, so it couldn't burn there because he published that book and then has just been desperately horny to find somebody burn it, and he's been unable to, and that's frustrating to him. Yeah, if you are going to try to make your whole career about caring about the First Amendment, then in a 24-hour period where a president threatens to shut down a social media network, a company that he doesn't like, and then reporters get hauled off the streets, I think that the bar is pretty low, but you have to send a tweet about those things at a bare minimum. You have to pretend that you care. If you can't do that, we don't have to pretend to have any respect for you. And by the way,
he's a lazy, incompetent, grifting fraud. That's who Dave Rubin is.
Yeah.
I mean, he's so transparent about it that even the right wing laughs at him.
Yeah.
Okay. And look, I know I'm focusing on Dave Rubin because that's like a particularly egregious case, right? But it's about Dave Rubin's a symptom of a bigger problem that we're seeing in the media right now. People say shit that they don't believe, excuse my language, because they make money off of it.
100%.
Because they'll get right-wing funding for it. That's why they do it. So be super skeptical about these disingenuous people who have further promoted the type of violence and the type of, police militarized actions that we're seeing right now every day. People like Dave Rubin have been either complicit in it or they have encouraged and enabled it.
Yeah.
And that's a huge problem. We need actual journalism in America. Right now it's lacking. Real journalists have been laid off in droves. And I can't stand hearing someone who's enjoying his wealth right now put himself in a position of victimhood. What a fraud. Pathetic.
100%. He's the most obvious and the most laughable. But there are others. Anytime you raise concerns about the assault on the press over the past few years, you get attacked. Like, why are you freaking out about this? It's all the same. It's all the same as it's ever been. So if you wondered how America would slide into failed state territory, it would be with a small percentage of media commenters just saying, no, just lay down. Just accept it. Just accept the fascism, accept the racism, accept the violence, accept the media being dissolved, accept all of that. We're not going to. It's as simple as that. And really fast, I want to mention, by the way, the reason I am so shocked by this story and feel like it's worthy of coverage is not just that a reporter got arrested. Independent reporters get arrested constantly. It happens all the time. This is no worse than that, but it is more brazen than normal. They will haul off a YouTube, political news person or something like that and not bat an eye at it. Hauling off CNN reporters during a live hit gives us a look into the frame of mind of the police. And by the way, people are saying that it wasn't the Minneapolis police, it was the state police. I apologize if that's true. But they apparently believe, if you believe that you can do that, what else do you believe about the status of your power and your willingness to use it? So this is a cautionary tale there. They were eventually released after it was confirmed that they were media. That's BS. They confirmed it live on TV in front of you. You saw it happen. It's Friday, and thus it's time to take out the trash. Thank you, as always, to Brett for making that intro. Anna, because you're the guest today, I'm going to give you first go. Who's going in the garbage today?
There were many candidates for the garbage today, but one person who really got under my skin is a mayor from Mississippi. His name is Hal Marks, and he felt the need to share his incredibly hateful and just hateful, dumb commentary on what happened to George Floyd. Now, make no mistake about it, we've all seen that horrific video of George Floyd getting murdered by a cop in Minneapolis. The cop kneeled on George Floyd's neck for several minutes until Floyd died. And what did Hal Marks, the mayor of Petal, Mississippi, have to say about it? He said, if you are talking about the incident in Minneapolis, I didn't see anything unreasonable. If you can say you can't breathe, you're breathing. Most likely that man died of overdose or heart attack. Video doesn't show his resistance that got him in that position. So let me just say, number one, we have now seen multiple pieces of surveillance before the cop decided to kneel on his neck. And in no instance did George Floyd resist arrest. That was completely made up by the cops. Secondly, how do you watch that video and argue that he was able to breathe? At one point, he was begging for his mother. And that's the part where, like, I just lose it every time I see it or even think about it.
Yeah.
Hal Marks, along with many other lawmakers in Mississippi, is a white supremacist who loves seeing this type of state-sponsored violence against people of color. That's who Hal Marks is, and he deserves to be in the garbage.
Yeah. Well, I know I'm the only one with the trash, so in your honor, I have Hal Marks here. I don't know how visible he is, but he's not going to be visible for long because he's going in the garbage. By the way, we also have he thought his point was so poignant that he posted it again. If you can talk, you can breathe. Think about that before rushing to judgment. Maybe think at all before posting trash would be my suggestion. Okay, Anna, great garbage person. Definitely exemplifying American garbage. But now it's my turn. For my garbage person of the week, look, considering what's going on in the country, I would feel extremely uncomfortable choosing anyone other than the police in Minneapolis. So that put it down in the history books. That's my choice. But we also have talked at length so far on the show today. So I'm going to give you another one. This is sort of my runner-up for the day. But I'm going to be suggesting these macaque monkeys as garbage creatures of the week. And you might think, wait, John, why are you attacking monkeys? What do they have to do with anything? And don't you love nature? I do. But we are suffering in the world right now, thanks to this pandemic. Many people have died, and we've got monkeys running around trying to make it worse. According to local media in Delhi, India, a gang of macaque monkeys snatched COVID-19 blood test samples that had been taken from 3 patients and fled with them. One of the monkeys was later spotted in a tree chewing one of the sample collection kits, the Times of India reported, adding that test samples from the patients had to be taken again. Now, we don't know for sure if those samples were positive for coronavirus, but we do know that these macaque monkeys are rampaging through parts of Delhi, snatching food and mobile telephones, breaking into homes, terrorizing people. You might recall that on Trump's trip to Delhi, they had to have armed guards in case they attacked. We are already in the apocalypse. We don't need specific callbacks to apocalyptic movies like Outbreak, where suddenly monkeys are getting involved. So monkeys, just back off and let us deal with this situation. We'll get to you eventually.
Yeah, stop monkeying around.
How long had you been waiting to add that?
A few minutes.
A few, but it was good. No, those monkeys are garbage, by the way. Monkeys, I'm done with you. You know, you're funny. I like it. The throwing the poop is hilarious. But now you get thrown into the trash. Okay, so I want to add on the community choice for today because, of course, every week we put up a post on the TDR community tab with your recommendations, and here's how the voting went this week. With 16,000 votes, the Minneapolis PD have 25% of the vote, far eclipsing number 2, Trump at 8%, Kayleigh McEnany and Amy Cooper at just a few percentage points. And let me just say, when Trump is on the choices, Trump wins. That is a law of garbage people. And yet the Minneapolis PD destroyed him this week, and understandably so. So the community and me in agreement today. Also wanted to let you know, feel free to tweet us. Do you want an all of the above, or do you think that pollutes the results? Let us know in the chat. One final thing. I did want to... Garbage People is like my favorite time of the week, but it is an obviously inherently negative thing, and people have been saying you should have something to balance it out, something positive, and we're working on that. But I do have one quick suggestion for something positive. Now, you're going to want to hold because it's not immediately positive, but I want to read this post that I saw someone tweeted out from the Gandhi Mahal restaurant in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I'm going to try to get through this. When I first read it, kind of teared up a little bit. I'm going to try not to do that right now, but here's what it says. Hello, everyone. Thank you to everyone for checking in. Sadly, Gandhi Mahal has caught fire and has been damaged. We won't lose hope, though. I am so grateful to our neighbors who did their best to stand guard and protect Gandhi Mahal. Your efforts won't go unrecognized. Don't worry about us. We will rebuild and we will recover. So that's all fine, but this is where it gets to the point that I care about. This is Hafsa, Ruhel's daughter, writing, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to get through this. As I am sitting next to my dad watching the news, I hear him say on the phone, "Let my building burn. Justice needs to be served. Put those officers in jail."
Wow.
I mean, that's amazing. That he understands, he gets it, and that is really something. Yeah, our country is filled with some truly awful people, but not all of it. And there are some great people. Yeah, no, I wasn't able to get through it without tearing up. But anyway, thank you to him. And when that restaurant is rebuilt, please go to it. I hear it's delicious, and so you can go for that reason, or you can go for the fairly obvious reasons based on what we just read. Very excited to be welcoming to the show a congressional candidate for New York's 15th district with a primary coming up very soon. Samelys Lopez, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And I want to give a shout out to the Young Turks.
Thank you.
We need to continue to support independent media because you all make such a huge difference in giving candidates like me a platform. So thank you so much for having me on your show.
I really do appreciate that, and especially considering the state of the country and some of the political developments recently, we all here on camera and our audience are looking for good candidates to support. So I'm trying to put as much time as possible while these primaries are going on into introducing them to candidates. And so I want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about sort of why you decided to run, what you're bringing to the run, and all of that. I know that generally we have a lot of total political outsiders running, usually in contentious primaries, but your launch into this race is actually a little bit different, right?
Right. So I'm running in an open seat. So I'm running in the 15th congressional district of the South Bronx, the Boogie Down, and it's known as the poorest urban congressional district in the country. My name is Samelys Lopez. I was born in Bayamón, Puerto Rico. My mother is an Afro-Dominican woman from the Dominican Republic. She was born in the Wedge, and she was raised in Barahona. She came here to work as a seamstress to make ends meet, and her experience working in sweatshops is very similar to what a lot of people in the district currently go through. So this is a district that I'm running to represent, and it's the honor of my life. I love this community. Hip hop came out of this community. Salsa came out of this community, and it has so many amazing things to offer to the world. So I want to represent it with pride, and it's an honor of my life to be in this campaign. But yes, it is an open seat, and there's about 14 other candidates running in this race as well. A bunch of elected officials that are corporate Democrats taking huge sums of money from real estate developers, corporate PACs, pharmaceutical monies, pushing jail building in the community. So our campaign is fueled by the grassroots, We lead right now in this congressional race with the highest number of individual grassroots donations. We have a network of 600 and plus volunteers helping us make calls from all over the world. We're going to be joined tomorrow by a group from the UK, which I'm really excited about. And this campaign is fighting for things like universal housing, universal childcare, healthcare for all, environmental justice. And we're rejecting real estate developer money, corporate PAC money, pharmaceutical money to finance our campaign, because we recognize that you have to reject that kind of funding if you're going to be a true fierce advocate in Washington. So that's what we're doing. And basically the platform that I'm fighting for in this campaign is basically informed by my direct lived experiences. Mm-hmm. My mother ended up being a domestic violence survivor when she met my stepdad after she came to this country. And we went to the shelter system to escape what was going on at home. And because of that, I have always been attracted to social service, social justice, community organizing. And I've centered directly impacted people in everything that I've ever done in my life. And because of my early experiences living in the shelter system, I dedicated 10 years of my professional life to building housing here in the community to prevent other children and families from ending up in that situation. And I also worked for the outgoing Congressmember, Jose Serrano, who was actually one of the most left-leaning progressive members of Congress. So it would be a shame for this seat to go to the hands of corporate Democrats that will take the district a couple of steps back in terms of grassroots progressive leadership. So this is what our campaign is about. And many people in this congressional district are experiencing the same issues that I grew up dealing with. So my experiences that I lived through are definitely not unique. People are still going through that, and people need change, and they're ready for revolutionary leadership. And this is what our campaign wants to bring.
You know, in addition to some of the historic issues that you referenced there, in particular, you know, obviously everyone knows that New York has been basically harder hit than anywhere else in the world during the current situation that we're dealing with, which is a huge challenge to deal with in the short term, a huge struggle that if you get elected into office, you'll be dealing with, but also I'm sure is a big impediment to the actual run in the first place. I mean, you said that you've been very successful in getting grassroots donations, but what is it like sort of closing out your run for this seat during an inability to do a lot of canvassing and the sorts of things that you might normally be expected to be able to do?
No, absolutely. First of all, my heart goes out to everybody who's been impacted by the coronavirus epidemic. Like you said, my community here in the Bronx is at the epicenter of the crisis, and that's largely because of bad economic policy choices that our current leadership has undertaken, courting companies like Amazon and Fresh Direct. As we know, Amazon has direct connections to ICE that terrorizes our undocumented sisters and brothers. And also Fresh Direct, which brings a lot of trucks into the community and pollutes our air and our water. So because of these environmental justice issues that we've experienced as a community over decades, we have been predisposed to the coronavirus in our community. I happen to live right across the street from a hospital, and all I hear all day are sirens. And the way that this crisis was handled by the state leadership here, you know, Governor Cuomo, Mayor de Blasio, they didn't put science first. So I think that that is a big criticism in terms of New York City, in terms of how, for instance, states like Washington, like Seattle, like ended up organizing around the coronavirus better than New York did, because they prioritize science and the medical community in terms of how to meet this crisis head on. And I feel like that should have happened in New York as well. But yeah, no, it's definitely a challenging situation. Fortunately, when I entered the race back in September 2019, I took door knocking very, very seriously. And we have been door knocking pretty much like every day since we entered the race. And unfortunately, when the coronavirus epidemic hit back in like late February, March, obviously we had to change course because we had to put the public health first. So then we moved from a door-to-door grassroots door-knocking strategy, and we started phone banking and texting. And in many ways, it's proven to be very good because we are getting support and volunteers from all over the world. Whereas before they would have had to get on a plane, right, to help us door knock and, spend money out of pocket. They can just get on a Zoom call, a Google Hangout, join what we're doing, check up on our neighbors. And it's been great. This Saturday, we have somebody from the United Kingdom, a group that's going to be making calls for us. And we have people from, Latin America as well, and different parts of the country helping us make calls and donating to our campaign. So there's a lot of grassroots momentum and excitement as well. We also lead in the district in terms of the amount of donations that we have in the congressional district and in the Bronx as a whole. So we're really trying to fight that fight and center the values of the community and the people here. So that's what's going on in our world. And we're also using the phone banking to check up on our neighbors and engage in mutual aid as well. Because one of the biggest things that we see in my congressional district after checking in with our community is hunger. A lot of people don't have jobs. A lot of people in our community are frontline delivery workers. They're the people that basically subsidize our way of life here in New York City and in the country. And a lot of them, unfortunately, don't have jobs. They don't have health care. So one of the biggest issues that we're seeing in our phone banks is hunger. So what we've done is identify people throughout our calls to see who needs help, like who needs a bag of groceries. And that's something that's been really well received in the community. That's been unexpected because we prioritize compassion and love in everything that we do. And we check up on our neighbors. And, there's a lot of isolation as well that people feel here in the community. And even just getting a call from a stranger is something that just uplifts their spirits. And it's a public service in and of itself. We've also translated our website into 4 different languages out of respect for the diversity that exists in the community. This congressional district is 97% Black and brown, communities of color. So we've translated our website into French, into Bangla, into Arabic and Spanish as well, so that everybody can see the message that we're promoting in the district, because you got to center the grassroots, and diversity is our strength here in the 15th congressional district. And people need a representative that's going to be able to unite everybody and fight for strong foreign policy that centers the human rights and self-determination of everybody in the world, whether you're from Palestine, the South Bronx, Puerto Rico. So those are the values that we're leading with, and how intentional we're being to respect the community.
Wow. And the website you mentioned there, where can people find that and find out more about your campaign, your platform, some of the issues and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to lopezforthepeople.com, and you can follow us at Samelys Lopez on Twitter and Instagram, and at Samelys Lopez NYC. And there you can, sign up to volunteer, to donate. And you can also get a T-shirt too, if you're interested in that. So you can also go to the site as well and buy your T-shirt. They're really, really nice looking. And something else that we're doing, we're also doing community building events as well. And we're biking in the congressional district to expose people to the beauty of the South Bronx and all the amazing parks and greenways that exist here in the community. So if you happen to be in the New York City metro area and you want to go with us on a bike ride and check out the beauty of this community, check us out. We usually meet on Mount Eden and Grand Concourse at 11 a.m. on Sundays. And then we figure out the route collectively from there and just explore the district together.
That sounds awesome. I actually bike on the weekends as well. I'm in LA, but if I was closer, that sounds great. I'm actually from Connecticut originally, from Bridgeport.
Oh, wow.
Wish that I could do it. But that does sound great, and I hope some of our viewers take you up on that. And obviously, best of luck. The primaries on the 23rd of June, so it's coming up in less than a month. And just want to wish you luck, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, absolutely. Please follow us at lopezforthepeople.com. And actually, voting started now because people are voting by mail-in ballots. So people are starting to vote now through June 23rd. So check us out and volunteer for a phone bank.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Damage Report. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, John Adarola. I'll see you soon.